Black women in toxic jobs. How to deal with a narcissistic boss. Have you had a situation where the boss feels like everything revolves around that person? They take everything personally and they have cliques, and it just feels like a messy work environment. If you are in that situation and you are wondering how do I deal with this situation, you may have a narcissistic boss, okay? So I just wanted to be clear that we're not diagnosing anyone here. We're talking about narcissistic qualities, okay? So we're going to talk about narcissistic qualities that you may see in a boss and how you may be able to deal with that. So again, if that you are having this experience, you need to watch this video. I'm going to have Sam on talking about her experiences with a narcissistic boss, and I can relate to that too, honestly. So if you don't know me already, I'm Dr. Kamani. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist with over 20 years of experience working with Black women. I'm also a toxic job survivor and a toxic job liberator. Okay. So, Sim, can you please introduce yourself and we'll get into the conversation?
Okay. Hello. My name is Sim, and I'm a virtual consultant with S2V Consulting. I provide online support to victims of narcissistic abuse, empowering them to overcome the narcissistic tactics used on them. And I have a
Awesome.
channel on YouTube, which is called Survivor to Victor.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. And I just want to apologize for a little delay. Someone's having some connection issues, and we all know about technology, right? So, you know, thank you everybody for joining us. So, Sim, can you tell us about an experience that you've had in a workplace in which the boss seemed to exhibit some narcissistic qualities?
Okay. Well, in over 20 years, 20 years of working in state government, I've had several experiences with toxic work environments.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. Um, there was a situation where I just started working for an organization,
Mm-hmm.
and the person wasn't my boss yet. He would become my future boss, but we
Mm-hmm.
worked in the same department. And I had very positive impressions of him at first. I mean, he was, well dressed, super charming, very handsome. And, I noticed in the beginning when we were more so teammates that he would
Mm-hmm.
overly praise me for my work and the way that I dressed. But about maybe a year and a half to 2 years later, I got a promotion and within the same department. And I, at that point, had to work directly under him. And that's when I
Mm-hmm.
started observing narcissistic behaviors. He was very exploitative, and he would devalue me by taking credit for the work that I had
Mm-hmm.
done. He would also undermine my confidence. He had this thing. Now, at that time, I had worked in vocational consulting for over 10 years. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm very much accustomed to what an elevator pitch is. But
Mm-hmm.
he had this thing where, um, in order to undermine me and try to make me look stupid, he would bring me in front of people. Now, this is after all, I had already kind of proven myself, was
Did
working
you got
in
promoted?
um,
Yeah.
yeah, I had already proven myself. This was maybe
Mm-hmm.
about 6 months into the promotion. I'd
Mm-hmm.
already proven myself, and I had gotten praise from others. And I
Mm-hmm.
think he didn't like that. Um,
Mm.
so he started by trying to attack my elevator pitch, right? So he would have me, even though it had worked, I had been bringing in clients from all across Southwest Virginia. He for whatever reason tried to critique my elevator pitch. Every time he saw me, he would call me and be like, "Do your elevator pitch, do your elevator pitch." And each time he would try to tweak it, and
Mm.
then I change it up, do whatever, and then he'd tell me I was doing it wrong.
Wow.
Okay, each
Like
time I
dad when the
erode my
carrot,
confidence.
like quite, not, nope, not quite. Nope, nope, not quite. That you were never quite good enough.
Exactly, always
And
setting
moving
the bar.
goalposts.
Hi-
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Uh-huh.
And he had
Uh-huh.
very destructive tendencies. He would often try to set me up.
Mm.
Um, where he was complimenting the way that I dressed. Now it was an issue, and he'd be very vindictive if you try to give him any kind of input or feedback that maybe questioned some things that he was doing, and so he
Mhm.
would um, start to do things to try to set you up. He also had like this need for validation from leadership. He was always, dem- undermining or diminishing the contributions of his team and taking credit at the same time. Um, and of course, when he was doing the whole thing with the elevator pitch, he was trying to micromanage me and break down my confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some other things that he did, he would project a lot. He would say, for instance, if you called him on something, he was always blame shifting,
Mm-hmm.
and had a way of putting things back on you. And so all of
Mm-hmm.
these are pretty much characteristics of narcissistic abuse.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm going to review everything you said. And as you were saying each one, I was like, check, 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 check with the workplace bullying that I had, the similar qualities. And I just want to say again that we're not diagnosing anyone. We're talking about narcissistic qualities and behaviors. Okay. So if anyone has ever watched Dr. Ramani on YouTube, you need to watch her because she talks about narcissistic behaviors. And something that she says, which I thought was really on point, she said that people who exhibit narcissistic behaviors are more likely to go into leadership positions because they need that constant sense of validation and they constantly need to feel like they're over other people. So that's why many of us have had narcissistic bosses or leaders. So, some things you said that I could completely relate to. And, ladies, if you can relate to any of this, say, me too, me too. Okay, constant need for validation. So, a narcissistic person, a person who has these qualities, they feel empty inside. So, they need constant validation. That insecurity, they need to constantly fuel that. And they'll do whatever they can do to fuel that sense of insecurity. So, some people might think that they're like overly confident. No, they're deeply, deeply, deeply insecure. So, they need constant validation. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for coming in chat. The other thing is you are being set up for failure. So they will put a situation and kind of put you out there, particularly they like to humiliate you in front of other people and based on your work performance, even though your work performance really does speak volumes that you're doing well, they try to poke holes because that makes them feel better because again, they're deeply insecure, right? So set up, take credit for your work.
Yeah.
Okay. So they may act like they were the ones who came up with it, or they're the ones who made whatever you did magic. That is absolutely not true. So again, they're trying to ride on your coattails because they're deeply insecure. You also talked about trying to break down your confidence. That's a way. It's almost like kind of sociopathic, right? So kind of eyeing the prey and trying to see like where can I kind of get this person, right? So particularly when they know that you're a high achiever, you want to do well, they know how to get at you is to poke holes at your work performance because they know that you value work performance. Um, Another thing is to project and to blame stuff onto you. So I used to call it projecting their own insecurities and their incompetence on you. So you have to be mindful when you're in situations like this in the workplace that when you're like, what's going on here? What's happening? I invite you to say, wait a minute, look at the source of their data. Okay. If the person who is doing this to you can tell they're deeply insecure. You know they didn't contribute to your work. You know that. So you need to just take pause and recognize what is happening, okay? Because if not, you're gonna get wrapped up into what did I do wrong? What did I do? And then you're seeking validation from someone who is trying to exploit you and to harm you. So be very careful. So Sam, now that you're telling me about all these, because I can clearly write down all that you've said, right? When you were in that situation, did you see these things for what it was? Or was this later after you were no longer in the environment?
At first, I didn't really pay a lot of attention to it. But I typically, because of my past experiences, would go into situations looking for narcissistic people. So I was
Oh,
able to identify it right away because of my experiences,
oh,
having had a partner who was formerly a narcissist. I did a lot to educate myself on the topic, even wrote a
okay.
book about it. But yeah, like there were absolutely early signs. I mentioned his overly charming behavior, which kind of devolved into becoming where he was very critical and dismissive of me.
Yeah.
And, all of the unwarranted office visits coming by my office, pretty much flirting with me. And he also had
Inappropriate.
like very,
Inappropriate boundaries.
very inappropriate behavior. And it's funny
Yeah.
that you mentioned the fact that the behavior is sort of psychotic or sociopathic, because
Yeah.
he would often make he would often make statements like, just to keep me off balance, was off the wall comments about killing his dog when he was younger, and all these types of crazy things that
Oh.
he would say to me
Whew.
off the hip. But yeah, the unhealthy patterns of flirtation, the dismissive attitudes about women. Um, we were actually a civilian organization, but we were located on a military base. And
Mm.
forgive me, I'm trying to
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to talk,
I got
but
you.
not say too.
Yes. I
But
got you.
it was it was a very rigid military environment, and it should have. When I first got there, I kept hearing stories about the high turnover rates. That should have been a red flag for me.
True.
Um, and because it was such a military environment,
Hmm.
there were certain hierarchies, and it really is like an old boys club there.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of the leadership were prior military, so we would have to address them as sir or ma'am, and a lot of those people tend to have god complexes.
Ah.
So there were a lot of signs, which at the time I ignored them because I liked the job so much, but
Hmm.
eventually it came to bear, and yeah, it was not a good environment at all.
Yeah. It's interesting too that I noticed that you said that he seemed very charming. That's another
Mhm.
quality of narcissistic people and that kind of sociopathic kind of charming. But the longer you're around them, like the cracks, like they can't keep it up. They can't keep it up because the personality stuff starts coming out and you start seeing like the cracks start oozing out. And even talking about his injury of pets, which is very disturbing, that was an implied threat, right? So do you see how far I can go? Like you better stay in your place. And I see some comments in the chat. They want you to be a team player, but if you have issues or stressors, it's insignificant. I have a supervisor who does performance reviews on the floor where others can hear instead of privately in a room. That is humiliating and so unprofessional. That's horrible. I
Yeah,
had a friend who started
yeah,
questioning if she was manageable. Yep. We're gonna say Sim.
yeah. He would always do this elevator pitch thing when people were around, so he could
Yep.
exert his power and control and try to embarrass me and humiliate
Yep.
me by telling me, "Oh, you're not doing it right," and whatever. So yeah, it was a power trip for him.
Yeah, and what's so interesting when you talk about power trip, these people
Mhm.
actually are telling on themselves that they're so insecure because they do things to put other people down so they can feel better. Anybody who is secure in themselves would never do that. So that person who's doing performance reviews so everybody can hear, that person is so small, they feel like they need to kind of step on other people. So you got to watch out for those people. And I just want to quote my friend Colette Elizabeth, who says, anytime you are in a situation where leadership, a person or a boss exhibits three qualities: incompetent, insecure, immature, watch out. Okay. And then when you got that flavor, that narcissistic flavor, you better really watch out because that's more of a personality issue that is highly unlikely to change. And more than likely, it's going to get worse. They're not going to change. So, offline, Sim, you told me about that you were previously partnered with someone who exhibited narcissistic qualities, and you also had bosses who exhibited narcissistic qualities. Can you talk about the parallels between a narcissistic person or qualities in a personal relationship and in a boss?
Well, they pretty much act the same wherever you go. It's funny how it's almost like, I guess it's psychopathy or whatever, but they all tend to have the same kind of symptoms, or
Same profile.
not symptoms. Yeah, they're really like that. Like some of the parallels between different bosses I've had and the partners that I've had the unfortunate um, to be involved with,
Yeah.
they had traits in that they all had self-inflated egos and this
Mhm.
inflated sense of self-importance and a need to control others.
Yep.
Both use tactics of gaslighting me to try to get
Mhm.
me to doubt my abilities and question my reality.
Yep.
Um, they all have difficulty with criticism.
Mhm.
Um, don't even try to tell him he did something wrong. That was like a
Right.
personal attack. And so again, with that, he would always blame shift it back onto you. Okay, if you're saying I'm doing something wrong, then let me find out what you're doing wrong. Um, but yeah, and then the inflated self ego, the kind of peacocking attitudes, and presenting themselves one way in public, and then in private, just really being a monster. Honestly,
Right. Yeah.
all of the people, even the women narcissists, which I didn't really think women could be
Oh,
narcissists
yes,
until I
they
had one
can.
coach
It's
show me her colors. And
okay.
oh my God. And it's there's so much more slick or insidious with theirs because
Yeah.
she used to present like this little southern belle, could never do anybody harm, but behind you she's backstabbing you, she's
Uh,
talking about you,
yeah.
degrading your professionalism. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, you got to
Yeah.
watch out for those women.
Absolutely. As I mentioned before, I'm not going to stereotype, but I'm just wondering if the women who exhibit narcissistic qualities can be even more dangerous because they have a different way of maneuvering with that. And like I said, the workplace bully that I had was a woman, a social worker. So you would think on, one hand, like you're a social worker, you're trying to help other people. Wow. Well, on the one hand, she would act like she's trying to help certain people, but behind the scenes, she was treacherous. And not just to me, but to many, many people. But when you're in a toxic system, the system knows about these people. They know that. They know these people are terrorists, but they just allow them to keep going on. And so you're like experiencing this, and then they're gaslighting you, and you're wondering, like, is it me? Like, what's going on? So, how were you able to determine? It's not me, it's them. How were you able to determine that?
Well, I knew that how I was being treated was wrong. I knew that they were just going beyond and above, trying to do things to kind of ruin my reputation,
Uh,
um, lying on me.
yeah.
And at that point, I started to educate myself on what narcissism was. I read a lot of books, went to different seminars, and this is over like maybe the last maybe 10 to 15 years that I've become aware of what narcissism is. When I think about all of the experiences that I've had, they were all with narcissistic bosses. But
Uh,
maybe until maybe 10 years ago, I wasn't aware of what narcissism was. But yeah, in educating myself, I saw the signs, the gaslighting, the blame shifting, the merry-go-rounding, all of that. It just fell into place, and I was able
yeah.
to say, okay, you know what? This isn't me, it's them. But
Mhm.
still, even with it being them, you if you find out that your boss or person in your life is a narcissist, there is no dealing with it unless you're willing to play their games, submit to whatever they want you to do. Then you're okay with them. But if you're a person that's outspoken, that speaks their mind, and Lord, don't shine in their presence. Don't
Oh,
be a person that is a high achiever. Oh my goodness,
no.
you are then a threat. So
Absolutely. Oh, yes.
the only thing you can do in that situation to rectify it is to get out of it.
Yes, I agree. I agree. So, when you talked about the only way you could deal with it is if you kind of play their game and do what they want. But basically, when you do that, you're allowing them to prey on your soul. They're like leeches, like they just suck all the life out of you and they try to contort you into be something that they can totally dominate. But if you stand up, that's just intolerable. And they cannot stand if you're getting more shine than them. They cannot stand it. It's kind of like what is it, Rumpelstiltskin? You know what I mean? Like they're about to just blow up. Like what? Oh my God! Like blows their mind. So can you talk a little bit about when you were in those situations, right? Narcissistic boss who exhibited narcissistic qualities, partner who exhibited narcissistic qualities. How did that impact you physically, mentally, and spiritually?
Hmm. Um, well, in all of the situations, I went through a lot of stress. I was just constantly fatigued and drained being around these people because
Okay.
their energy is so negative and there's such a void in their lives that they kind of suck the energy out of you
Yeah.
almost.
They're energy
And that,
vampires.
yeah, exactly, energy
Yeah.
vampires. And so I
Uh-huh.
would get like, oh my gosh, constant headaches. I had to deal with a lot of anxiety during that time and couldn't sleep well, had insomnia.
Mm.
um, Emotionally, I would say that the constant criticism and game playing and head games um, did, after a while, it can't help but erode your self esteem because this is
Yeah.
somebody that you're trying to impress. You know, you're trying to get good performance evaluations from
Mm.
because they're your employer and they're doing whatever they can to kind of bring your reputation down and make others feel that you're not competent. So
Right.
it can be very, very stressful. Spiritually, I just felt like just really disconnected. I was
Yeah.
struggling with things like self doubt and also hopelessness in the
Oh,
situation. So I did
wow.
get a therapist. You know, even in knowing all of this information about
Mhm.
who they are, how they behave, what you can expect, it still takes a toll on you, on your mental
Exactly.
health.
Well, it's emotional, right? It's emotionally draining. And then you have somebody who is literally attacking you. It's like a character assassination. So you're constantly trying to protect yourself. But again, when you think about a toxic environment, that toxicity starts coming into your system. So you said you start questioning yourself, impacting your self esteem. And I think you mentioned therapy. You went to therapy as well?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
And it's funny because in a lot of situations, and your business partner and I had talked about this on another podcast, but um, a lot of my therapists in the beginning were white therapists, and they didn't understand where I was coming from.
Ah.
They really didn't understand at all my point of view and thought that a lot of this was in my head because,
Woo! So they were
yeah,
gaslighting
it
you,
was a lot.
right?
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
gaslighting.
Right. And that happens to a lot of Black people, and that's why a lot of Black people say, "I don't want therapy," or "I want a therapist who's Black," because many times we go to therapists who are not Black, they don't understand our lived-in experiences. So there might be an attempt to gaslight us or question, "Did you really see it that way?" or "What did you contribute to that?" Right? But not understanding that many of the experiences that we have as Black people are common. We're not all the same, but we have some similar dynamics that happen. And when you're with a Black therapist, often you could say something, and it's like, girl, I know. And so it provides that sense of, okay, this person really understands me. So so you had the white therapist at first that they didn't understand, right? Did you then transition to a Black therapist?
Yes, finally. I really did like my white therapist, but then when it came to situations around work, she was always trying to tell me that, maybe you're perceiving things the wrong way. So I did eventually end up transferring to a black therapist who could completely understand where I was coming
Right.
from.
Right. Well, first, I want to commend you for firing that therapist and knowing you can fire a therapist. If you don't connect with your therapist, you can fire the therapist. I commend you for doing that and finding a Black therapist who could understand. Sometimes people have a white therapist or some therapist who doesn't understand, they don't connect with, and they'll just stop with therapy and say it doesn't work. But therapy can work if you have a good therapist and you're aligned with them. So, Sim, it sounds like you went through a whole bunch, right? So, how did you deal with that boss, that narcissistic boss you told us about? How did you deal with this person?
Okay, over 20 years of dealing with the person required me of not
This
dealing
was
with
a
the person,
20-year
but dealing
period?
with the I would say over the last 20 years, I've had about 5 different toxic work experiences.
Okay. Okay. Wow.
I probably didn't deal as well with it in the beginning, but with anything, practice makes perfect. Right?
You know what, Sam, do you
So,
mind sharing with us? And again, I appreciate you being very candid about this because many Black women have multiple traumatic or toxic, what are traumatic, toxic job experiences, often with narcissistic bosses. But
mhm.
we sometimes feel like we're alone. We sometimes feel like we're the only one. And so I appreciate you saying I've had multiple. So can we go back and talk a little bit about with the earlier situations, how did you deal with that? And the later situations, how you started dealing with those narcissistic bosses.
Well, of course, in the earlier situations, I think my earliest experience with this maybe happened back in 2006.
Okay.
I was a branch manager, and my boss was very much a tyrant. And
Oh,
so, again, I'm a very outspoken person, and I don't really let people run all over me.
uh-huh.
So, if you're like that, you become a target instantly.
Oh,
If
yes,
you
you
if
do.
you
Oh, I can't stand
capable,
that. Yes.
you can't.
Like, how dare you? You become
Yeah.
enemy
So
number
in the
one.
beginning, you do, and then they try to get their cohorts to get in on the
The
abuse
minions.
also. But
Yes.
hmm a lot of mobbing. They do a lot
Yes.
of mobbing. But
Yes.
um, first situation, which I think happened back in 2006, um, this boss, I was trying to do everything. He would do the same things, gaslight me, try to make me feel that I wasn't up to par,
Mhm.
try to get me to change and not be so outspoken, try to get me not to speak up in meetings. You know, any type of input or feedback that I would give out, they would dismiss it. So being very dismissive, and of course, I'm doing everything I can to try to keep my job because at that
Right.
time I had been divorced, taking care of a 6-year-old by myself, and
Mhm.
so you're doing everything to try to please this person, and you come to find out that you can't. And
Yeah.
so it was this final straw with that particular situation was while I was out of the office, he came and completely ripped, because I used to lock my desk, ripped panels off of my desk. And I probably didn't respond in the best way because
Keep the
he had a
panels
little
off
thing
your
going,
desk.
like the frame parts of the drawers of the desk. He ripped them off in order to get into my desk.
Wow.
And I immediately took pictures, sent them to HR, and at the point I was angry, and so I started telling all his business. The fact that he was sleeping with one of the other French managers. I
You're like, you're going to get dirty. I'm going to get dirtier. How about that?
exactly, exactly, and
Wow.
you know, the situation got very, very ugly, um, and he even got the people that were working under me to kind of go against me and try to set me
Wow.
up. Like de- deposits kept coming up short, different types of things, but um, yeah, I ended up after I had enough on that particular job. One day I just walked in the office and I gave him my I didn't have anywhere to go. This is the first time I actually walked out on a job. I
Wow.
had nowhere to go, but I knew that I could not stay in that situation because uh, it was really hurting my mental health. But
Yeah.
because I started documenting things, and um, I filed a petition with the EEOC, even though
Okay.
it took them 2 years to get back to me.
2 years.
They
Oh my
didn't get
gosh.
back. It was long gone from the job, and all the people that were witnesses had left, so that
Wow.
didn't help me. But yeah, that was the first job I actually walked off on because it was just too stressful.
Yeah. Can I ask you something, Sam? Did it
Sure.
feel like okay, so can you talk about what were the mental health symptoms you were having? You said the mental health toll was too much. What were those symptoms you were experiencing at that time?
I was just, oh my gosh, overwhelmed by
Mhm.
everything that was happening to me. I think I had a couple of panic attacks because
Wow.
I was just under such scrutiny,
Yeah.
and having to deal with this man coming into the office whenever he wanted to try to like embarrass me in front of people that were working under me, and
Mhm.
uh, calling attention to things that he would actually create situations like he would create situations. I'm trying not
Yeah.
to say too much, but he would
Yeah.
create
Causing
situations
drama.
and
Causing drama and
things.
drama. Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so yeah, a lot of hopelessness, self doubts, all of that came into play because this is my boss. I want to please him. At that point, though, I really couldn't care less because the way he was treating me. But
Yeah.
yeah, you want to keep your job, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's funny because all the jobs that I excelled at were the jobs that I had issues.
Oh, wow. So at the beginning, like the earlier phases when you dealt with narcissistic bosses, it had this negative impact on you. And then sometimes you engage in behavior that was not commonly how you would respond, right? And then what about later as you experienced narcissistic bosses? How did you deal with them then?
Well, from that first experience, I learned that you have to document.
Okay.
EEOC rep did tell me to document things, so I was always documenting things,
Okay.
and dates, conversations, things that were done, um, any type of out of the ordinary, or uh, abusive things that were done to me. I put those down on paper, and in each case, I could probably write a book about each experience because I have so much documentation from all
Wow.
of the experience. Like, you know what? I need to
Yeah.
compile this into a book.
Ooh, girl, it
But
sounds like
yeah,
a scary soap opera, you know?
yeah, it was. It
Crazy,
was. And
crazy.
at, at some point, you do start to think, okay, why do I keep having these experiences? Maybe it is me. That
Oh,
I went through that. I went through that, and I didn't know until I ran across Anne Marie's channel, the
uh-huh. Yes,
anti-HR lady,
anti-drug lady. Yes.
that Black women were going through this on a regular basis.
Yep.
I did not know that, and it gave me a lot of, I don't know, I felt supported. It helped me to realize that these things happen to Black women on a regular, and it
Yeah.
wasn't me.
Yeah. All
So
the time. All the time. And you know what's so sad? It's you feel validated on the one hand, but then heartbroken on the other hand that so many of us go through the same thing. And it's around the world. I just heard a Black woman in South Africa talking about this. So it's similar situations. So Sim, when we leave a job, except for that situation where you were like, I'm out, right? That's not usually, right? Usually we're in a job we don't like. It's like a progression of events contributing to us leaving. Okay. So the last job that you had, because you're retired now, right?
yes, I am.
Okay. So the last job you had, was that a job with a narcissistic boss too?
That was a job with a narcissist. This is the first time. My last job was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back because this particular incident came from another Black woman.
Ooh.
Um, and that was probably one of the most heartbreaking
Ooh.
situations because when I first got to that job, the Black woman and I were we were establishing, camaraderie. I thought a friendship, but
Uh-huh.
I started to see things in her personality that I didn't like. So I did pull back a little bit,
Uh-huh.
and I saw that she would try to kind of steal my ideas
Ooh. Uh-huh.
and use her own and things like that made me pull back. And once I started doing that, she just went full out. She told lies to the boss about things I didn't do.
Oh.
She was training me because she had been there longer. She wouldn't train me correctly. She kind of left me off to do things on my own.
So she was setting you up for
And
failure, basically.
absolutely, absolutely did
Wow.
that. And there is nothing like betrayal from another Black woman. I was
Ooh.
just like, what? I mean, I
Yeah.
kind of expected it, but when it came from her, that really like just hit me hard.
Yeah, so I've done a number of videos about all skin folk and kinfolk on my channel with a whole playlist, everybody. So if you want to see more of these, go to my playlist, all skin folk and kinfolk. So let's talk a little bit more about why it is so painful when the person engaging the negative behavior is another Black woman. How does it take it to another level?
It takes it to another level because you're expecting this person to know what it's like, right?
Right.
We all, as Black women, go face misogyny. I mean, the intersectionality of it all: misogyny, racism, uh, sexism, all of it.
Yeah.
And a Black woman, you think, okay, this is like my sister. This is
Yeah.
someone that understands my path, understands
Yeah.
the things that I've been through, has been probably had similar experiences.
Yeah.
And to have her turn on me and stab me in the back and get other people, other Black women, to go against me was just
Oh,
like,
so she
wow.
conspired
Who
against
can,
you too?
oh yeah, I was it was gosh, I mean, she had white and Black against me. Um, not inviting me to things and telling, I mean, the stuff that she did, oh my goodness. You have to be you have to be manipulative, but she was just deceptively brilliant in some of the things that she did to me,
Wow.
did behind my back that I didn't find out
Wow.
until later.
Oh,
But yeah, it was heartbreaking.
yeah. So that sense of familiarity. And sometimes I think that we assume that other Black people have a similar value system as us. And sometimes they don't. And sometimes they might fall into that white supremacist way of thinking that you're competition, right? Like I got to take you out because you about to take something from me. So I need to wipe you out. I don't care if you're Black, white, I don't care. I need to wipe you out. And so those people, like you said, they're very deceptive, like exploitive, like masterminds, like again, like that sociopathic quality. So they can kind of peep out a situation. I had a Black woman told me one time that what did she say? Oh, she told me that she had sized me up. She told me she had sized me up and that she knew what I was good at and what I was not so good at. And I was like, oh my God, like it sounded like a predator, right? So when you're around people like that, and you said you started saying some things earlier, she was stealing ideas, right? So you started pulling
Feeling
back.
like she knew my calendar. I was like, how did she get into my calendar? Things would
Oh,
start missing in my office.
oh,
Um, it was just a lot. And man, but I think I got way off target. You were asking me about the
no,
regression of
no, 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 no,
leaving the
no, no,
job.
no. Yeah, but you went into an area that it's rich because so many Black women asked me to talk about this, right? So it unfolded into a topic that many Black women are really struggling with because on the one hand you can kind of say, oh well, I kind of expected it from them, but from us,
Mhm.
sis, why would you do that? Why would you do that? So we were talking about the progression of events contributing to the last job. You said the last job it was another Black woman. So that's how we got to that topic, right?
Oh, okay.
So let's talk
Yeah.
about what were the progression of events at that last job with the Black woman that contributed to you saying, I'm done.
Well, they just did all kinds of dirty things to me, moving me around from office to office. Even I was the only person in the office to pass the certification the first time. And
Okay.
so they made me do things like retake the training 3 times. They
What?
moved me around from office to office, even though I had already proven myself.
Uh-huh.
They moved me around office to office to have people retrain me. They wouldn't let me handle my work on my own. They had to check over everything.
Even
They
though
wanted me to take
you
me,
had shown, you had exhibited,
yeah,
okay, put you in your place,
and
right?
everything
How dare you?
was everything was fine for 6 months, even with not having proper training. Uh, Even with my doing most of the training for myself on my own, passing the certification, they've made up stuff like, oh, you're not doing this right, this is messed up, da 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 da, you're gonna have to be retrained, oh, we're gonna move you from office. They did so many things to kind of discourage me.
Wow. Get in
And
your head.
yeah, it was ridiculous, the things.
Yeah.
And I came to the conclusion that because of the person that I am, that this was always going to happen to me, because I'm very outspoken.
Uh-huh.
And like I said, I had done a lot of work, personal work on myself, and it seemed like the healthier I became, the more I would speak up, the more authentic I became, was
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
threatening to them. And I
Yeah.
wasn't willing to go back to being a people pleaser anymore.
Yeah.
So it, it just led me to retirement. But some of the things I did, I had to really work hard to separate all the criticism and the attacks that I was enduring from my self worth. Um, I would practice self care techniques through journaling. I would take long walks. I used to do a lot of walking meditations, little
Oh, good.
tapes you can listen to. Those were
Uh-huh.
very helpful. And it's a lot of mindfulness in the midst of the chaos. Um, I don't know if you heard about the woman a few years ago that was, it was in Fort Hood. It was a military situation. That situation was much like the situation I went through
What
with
I don't know that
my
situation.
boss.
I don't think I know that situation. What was it?
Um, a young lady at Fort Hood, maybe about 2 or 3 years ago. It was going on around the same time that I was going through the narcissistic abuse from a boss at the military example I
Uh-huh.
gave you.
Uh-huh.
So she had been being stalked and harassed at work. The situation was very similar to mine, and it's what
Uh-huh.
prompted me to take action. She ended up unfortunately being killed by her boss, though.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
horrible. It was a. In the military tried to cover it up.
Woo. Oh my gosh. So that
Yeah,
was a wake-up call to you, like how far it could go.
it was. It was very much a wake up call to me.
Yeah. Ooh.
But that was what caused me to actually file a complaint with HR. But we know that HR is not there for us; they're there to protect the company, not the employee.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of the people that you're going to are in cahoots with the bosses.
They sure
Because
are.
there was a lot of things, underhanded things going on at that particular facility. So they had a lot to hide, and they were trying to, I think, send a message to other people that maybe wanted to speak up about certain things that were going on.
Yeah.
That this, if you say anything, this is going to happen to you too.
Yeah. Sim, I don't know if you heard me say this before. Your story reminds me so much of mine. It's unbelievable. It is absolutely unbelievable. You like were similar. I cannot stay silent,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if I see something wrong, I'm going to say something, right? I cannot stay silent. I just can't do it. And at the job, people became, I guess, relying on me to say something. Like they'd be like, "Oh, you going to say something about it?" Even though they had the same concerns, they wait for me to say something, and I would, right? But the thing about it was that it did make me a target. It made me a target, but I couldn't do that. And something I appreciated that you said was that when this stuff was happening, it can definitely take a toll on you, but you were like, I need to discharge the toxicity from my system. I need to release this because this is not who I am, and I don't want to take that in. But the part that you
Yeah.
said about it was so much you said, but just recognizing the situation for what it was, and that you had to leave, and that you had to take your power back. You had to take your power back. And something that I say, and again, I just want to just tell the audience, I apologize if this seems offensive, what I'm going to say, but this is exactly how I felt, Sim, right? So when you talked about you would speak up and negative things were done to you at the job to silence you and to make you an example, right? I call that psychological lynching. That's how it felt for me, right? So it felt like they were getting in my head and trying to make me think that, oh, you're not good, you're not, all these negative things, right? So they were trying to silence me with the things that they were doing. And they were like, okay, look, you see her? If you get out of line, you're going to be just like her. And so that's a way to, like, an oppressive technique to keep people in
Yeah.
the job in line, right? So okay, so you recognize all this stuff, this thing happened at Fort Hood. You were like, this is not good, right? So you started saying, I'm going to retire. Is that what happened then?
Not with that particular situation. The situation
Okay.
with the black woman is me to
Oh, okay.
retire because at that point I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna get this left, right, and center. I never expected to come from another black woman, but that was kind of
Uh-huh.
like straw.
You're like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done fighting with these fools. It's not going to get better. So I'm just retired. Okay. So did you have any concerns, or did you have to walk through any, I don't know, uh, doubts or lies or conflicts about retiring? Did you kind of beat yourself up like, oh, I should, let me say this, because this is something I heard. Girl, you gonna let them win if you leave. You gonna let them win. Why are you gonna do that? You don't just run, right? So that's something I had to, and I was like, boop, no, I don't, what am I fighting for? Right? I'm not gonna win, right? And I'm not fighting for what? Like, I want to fight for my life. How about that? So did you experience any interference, people saying something to you, and or you saying something to yourself about leaving, retiring?
Yeah, I have a fighting spirit, and in all of those positions, I fought back, but I feel like it was always to my own detriment.
Ah,
And I just got to a place with this last job that I was like, I can't do this.
yeah,
I don't even know. And I loved all of the jobs. I absolutely loved the jobs. Like I said, it was just the jobs that I really excelled at that I had these issues with.
yeah.
And but I got to a point where I didn't like to do any of it anymore. I have,
Yeah.
over 20 years of experience in case management and counseling, vocational counseling. But I just, even though I loved it before, all of these instances of dealing with this just made me like not even want to do anything anymore. I was like, I
Mhm.
don't know how I'm gonna make it, but I don't want to keep going through this.
Yeah.
And so I probably would still be there fighting if
Mm.
I hadn't come across Exodus Summit
Ah,
and you know many people that I could relate to in a
mhm.
community that understood genuinely what I was going through because it seemed like I was the only one going
Yeah.
through it at the time.
Yeah.
So in looking at videos like your videos, Stephanie Perry's videos, and Marie's videos, Rashida Dow, I really felt supported.
Yeah.
And they talked a lot about moving abroad. And, in the last year, since I've been retired, I've had the opportunity to travel to multiple countries. And I am actually planning a trip to Colombia in
Oh,
May for a few months.
okay.
So it's really opened me up to pursuing different passions. I don't think I would have ever gotten into consulting to try to help people that have gone through this type of, well, more so the narcissistic end of it. Um, so yeah, I don't think I would have ever been led to that direction had I not had all of these experiences.
Yeah.
But yeah, finding community that
Yeah.
could relate to what I was going through and learning about the fact that I didn't have to say, I don't have to keep putting up with this,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. There's another way. There's another way to live. And
Mhm.
something, oh my God, I cannot believe how much your story reminds me of mine. But anyway, there's a black woman on YouTube named Jenny Clark, and she talks about that the star player, because you said the jobs that you did the best at were the ones where all this
Mhm.
craziness happened. She said that the star players are the ones who are most the target of the workplace bully, right? So it doesn't make sense because you would think that the star player, they would try to, promote and really support this person. Nope, because you're dealing with insecure people. The other thing that I really appreciate you saying was that you were able to see there's another way of living. And I really appreciate Stephanie Perry and Rashida Dow Amory Archer, the anti-HR lady, for showing us that there's a different way of living. So, for those who are not familiar with Exodus Summit, can you please share with them what that is?
Well, it's a group of Black women, a community that's on Facebook, and a lot of them pivoted from jobs and careers that where they weren't appreciated, to go out and create their own businesses. And a lot of them have excelled, and they're sort of showing us the way to do that and helping us to abandon the programming of living in the United States with all the capitalism and consumerism, and encouraging Black women, because we are the most educated group in the United States,
Yeah,
to go out and fulfill our own dreams. Stop
yeah,
making money for other people who don't even appreciate it. Do your
right.
own thing. And so I was inspired to do that by these women.
Yeah,
I thank God, you know, people like you, people like Stephanie, Rashida, who kind of opened my eyes to other things,
yes.
that I didn't realize was killing me, really.
Yes, yes, right. So to provide the information to show you there's a different way, and for us as Black women to know we have options. We often think that, because we're the most educated demographic, we've been taught you go to school, you work really hard, you get that job, you stay there till you retire, but not if it's going to kill you. Not if it's going to kill you. There's other ways for us to
Yeah.
live and to make money and to do very well. The other thing that I really appreciate that you said, and everybody on Put Exodus Summit Facebook group is on the screen. So you can join their Facebook group. Remember, your avatar has to show that you're a Black woman, or else you're not going to get in the group, okay? So Exodus Summit has meetups around the world for Black women. So for Black women to be in community with one another, if you want to move abroad or if you just want sisterhood in the United States, they have meetups around the world for real. Okay. So Exodus Summit Facebook group, check it out. So something that you also said, Sam, was if these things didn't happen to you at that job, you would not have been exposed to or trying new things or exploring new things in your life. You wouldn't have done it. Just like for me,
Yeah.
this YouTube channel would have never been. It never would have been if I did not experience that trauma in the workplace, and if I didn't say, you're not going to silence me. This would have never happened. So sometimes things happen in a way that's unfortunate, but it takes us to a higher level, right? So experience that post-traumatic growth. So Sim, can you share with the audience a little bit more about what does your life look like now? Because you're talking about you going to Colombia in May. What does your life look like
Mhm.
now, and what is your healing journey? What does that look like?
Well, as I mentioned, I'm retired. I've done a lot of therapy, self reflection during this time, and that's allowed me time to heal and sort of rebuild my confidence, because I did need a lot of that coming out of
Yeah,
my last toxic experience.
yeah.
And writing a book. Um, the name of my book is "Ode to My Narcissism." Um, this book highlights my 4-year recovery from narcissistic abuse,
Wow.
and I probably would have never written the book had I not had those experiences in the past.
Uh-huh.
And so, becoming an author, doing more writing is something that I'm doing now. Um, Trying to empower others,
Okay.
who have had similar experiences and challenges with narcissistic abuse, giving them strategies on how to heal from toxic relationships, whether it be with partners, parents, or toxic workplaces. So
Okay. And
yeah,
how can people get
it's
the book?
the book actually is available in different bookstores like Barnes and Noble, but it's also available on Amazon, so it can
Okay.
be bought there. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I'll put information about the book in description section. So Sim, as we're winding down, if there's a Black woman who's watching this right now and she can relate to anything that you've said today, what words of wisdom could you offer to her?
I would tell any Black woman or man that you're worthy. Your value isn't determined by how people treat you,
Yeah.
or and it's important too that you trust your instincts in
Yeah.
situations like that, because I feel like my ability to trust my instincts when things felt wrong and to act on those things
Mhm.
was something that kind of helped me get through it. Um, and I think it's also important for them to build support systems. You
Mhm.
know, um, I think, an introvert with extrovert tendencies. But
Okay.
I've learned that community really can really help you during times
Yeah.
like that, because there were times where I really didn't have anyone to turn to, and I
Mhm.
was almost embarrassed by the situation because I didn't feel like anybody else was going through it.
Oh
But
wow.
finding communities like Exodus Summit,
Mhm.
it helped me be more open to
Yeah.
inviting people in my life, Black women in my life, because so I think if we work together and support one another, oh my God, we could move mountains.
Absolutely.
I really
Because
do.
we have.
Be-
Because we have.
We have,
Yeah. Yeah.
and another thing I would tell the women or your audience is that they need to prioritize their mental health, their
Mhm.
physical health, and not
Mhm.
let these jobs run them into the ground, because they are capable of doing that.
True.
There's so many people who have lost their lives, committed suicide over toxic work environments, or just worked themselves to death.
Yeah.
We had a situation where a man died at his desk because he was just so stressed out.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that you don't want to have that happen to you. No job is worth your sanity. No
No.
job at all.
No. Well stated. Well stated. So, Sam, can you share with the audience again about your book and any other services that you offer, your Facebook, your consulting, your YouTube? Can you share that with the audience, please?
Okay. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I have a YouTube channel which is called Survivor to Victor, or S2V Consulting. You can also find me on other social media platforms like Facebook, where I have a private group which is called Narcissist Revealed. You do have to have not a membership, but I have to accept you to the group, which is a few questions you have to answer to join our group. I also I'm available on IG at FemPower Mental, and also I guess TikTok is still around, but you can find
For
me there
now.
at you can find me there at Value Me 52. Of course, my book is available on Amazon. It's called Ode to My Narkenstein. It's a pretty meaty book. So, and also I have a consulting business, S2V Consulting, and I have a lot of curated videos about the topics of narcissistic abuse, and offer you tips and practical strategies for regaining control of your life and dealing with narcissistic abuse and overcoming narcissistic abuse. So,
So the consulting
um,
focuses more so on the narcissistic abuse, the consulting?
yes, yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. Uh-huh.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Uh-huh.
so
Okay, so I have all of Sim's information description section of this video, okay? So before we end, I want to read our community chat. I was trying to do better and read it as we got along, but then I kind of lost track. I'm sorry. Good
okay.
evening. God bless. You too for sure. We talked about that. Let's see. Sunday afternoon, greetings, sister. Let's learn and grow together. Thank you so much for joining. Good evening, ladies. This narcissistic supervisor rudely speaks Spanish until there's a word she has to say in English, and then you know she's talking who she's talking about. She started with those charming qualities. Yeah. When people start speaking a different language, when you know that they know English in front of you, that's an
Mm-hmm.
exclusion, right? And they make you feel othered. That happens to me a lot too. Like Sim, I was married to a narcissist and recognized the behaviors from the jump. Yes. What I found helpful is keeping a personal diary of different incidents, such as date, time, location, and who was involved and what was said in case push comes to to come to shove and you have to go to HR. Yes. And I hope that you can also hear what Sim was saying. Documentation is important, but ultimately, if you go to HR, they are working for the company. Okay. So you might be able to do that to kind of stave off a little bit, but ultimately, they're going to come down on the side, more than likely, of the person who was engaged in negative behavior. I believe women narcissists. Oh,
Yeah,
yes, we're going to say
I would like to interject that
yes.
even though HR is not there for you, it's good to use that. It's good to file the complaint and go through the process anyway, because even though I tried to negotiate the severance, and because I worked in state government, they didn't want to do that. They'd rather take their chances. Um, because I had all of this documentation, I was able to draw unemployment.
Ah,
Uh, Even though I quit the job, I was
okay.
able to draw unemployment for 6 months because I proved that it was a hostile work environment.
Ah,
So that's of documenting and contacting HR. You do have record of the fact that you did make an effort to tell them what was going on, and they did
yeah. So
nothing
use
about
it to
it.
your
So
benefit. Use it to your benefit.
yeah,
Okay. Yes. But I think what you're saying too, Sim, is because I know anti-HR lady says this too. When you go to HR, know that you are really putting a target on your back. So you could choose to go to HR, but also start getting an exit plan together. Okay. The anti-HR lady talks a lot about that. You might want to check out her channel too. I believe women are right. They play the game. Some play well using emotions, yes, to get over. Me and you both, Sam. I finally realized I was dealing with narcissistic boss as well. They find ways to tear you down. Quick story. I'm so glad that I have options plus allies. My boss tried, but they failed. The end, not my supervisor. So stay in your lane. Let's see. Yes, I think men are most equitable towards women. They don't hate you for no reason. So that's really tapping into internalized sexism that some women experience and really seeing other women as competition. Okay. Facts, right? Don't stand for yourself because here they come. Yes, defamation of character. Wow, a sense of betrayal, full of self hatred, crabs in a bucket mentality. So we're talking about the all skin folk and kinfolk. That is sad. My bad experiences have been with black managers and POC managers, and for sure white women. Sad but true. That's why I have found that being on my own boss and working 1099 jobs have been very satisfying and mentally refreshing because I don't have to prove anything to anyone and it's me versus me. I like that. Yes. Let me just say something that Stephanie Perry told me, and I just want to you remember this, right? I love being my own boss. I'm like, I can't even imagine, right? Like, I don't want to deal with that other kind of stuff.
yeah,
But I also have to keep in mind that in working for myself, I have to even stop myself from working because I love my work now, right? So I have to stop myself from working because then I start overworking. So we have to be mindful when we're working for ourselves, not to overwork and to pace ourselves. Thank you, Dr. Kamani, for speaking on that. I've experienced that and still do. I'm sorry to hear that, sis. Okay. And I want you to know there's resources for you and anyone else who can relate to this story. Okay. So Sim shared her resources. I have resources for you in the description section. There are resources for you to help you pivot and get out and heal. Okay. Sim talked about healing after she left, right? My healing happened after I left. I have resources about how to help you in that healing journey too. Wow, how an hour goes by so fast. Thanks, lady. Wonderful talk. I have so much documentation. It still was and still mom by my whole team. It's awful. Sim, our journey is the same. You're right. It hurts deeply when it's your sister. You have any words to share with her, Sim?
all I can say is karma is a you know what.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
I will get what they in fact deserve, and it's a shame that the crabs in the bucket mentality still exists. But I
Yeah,
think Black women should really work to support one another instead
yeah,
of falling into that cycle of feeling that you're always in competition. You always have to uh, show up the next one. I mean, we could get so much more accomplished if we just learn to work together.
true. And that's a tool of white supremacy, right? So let's protect ourselves from that. And also when you are going through this, because you said, I hear this other comment, I've been on leave for over a year from an accusation from a subordinate the less melanated person took as true. So when these experiences happen to us, yes, try to protect yourself as much as you can in the moment, and also start exit planning, because that environment is not healthy for you, and it's not worth the time of fighting. It's not worth it, because you're going to get sicker and sicker in the process. So access the resources that we're sharing you about, because again, it's not going to get better. Okay. I believe that it's spiritual warfare. It is. It's spiritual warfare. It really is. Okay. So everyone, thank you so much for watching. Sim, thank you so much for being my guest. Any last words that you want to share with everyone before we end today?
Well, I appreciate you allowing me some time to talk to you about my experiences with narcissists. And I just want to say to anyone that's going through narcissistic relationships with parents, spouse, workplaces, feel free to contact me at S2B Consulting. And we can set up a free discovery call to find out if we're a good fit, and that if I am able to help you with any needs that you have with overcoming narcissistic abuse. And I just
Good.
want to, women that are going through toxic workplaces, hang in there. But again, make that exit strategy and do whatever you need to do to preserve yourself. File FMLA, get on short term disability so that you can make those changes, and get some reprieve from
Yeah.
being in a toxic work environment.
Yeah, yeah, and I just want to add therapy too. Therapy is very important. So again, check out all the resources that are available to you, Black women. There's so many things available to you. People say to me, "Oh, I wish it was available 20 years ago." Well, I wish it was too. I wish that somebody would have done this before I was in a toxic job. But now there are
Yeah.
resources available to you. There really are. So everyone, give this video a thumbs up. Share this video with at least two other Black women, because if you know another Black woman, more than likely she is in a toxic job or she knows somebody who is. Okay. So share this video with two other Black women. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Subscribe to Sim's YouTube channel. Turn on the notification bell so that you know when we go live. Thank you. I have psychological lynching in my arsenal of knowledge. Yes, that's exactly what it felt like. It felt like that. It's just like, ugh. But you know what? I have peace because I know karma is real, and I know that I'm living my best life, because guess what? They tried to destroy me, but I rose up even higher, right? I'm now liberating Black women because of these fools, okay? So whatever, okay, whatever to them. So Kim, I pray, yeah, so people are offering support to one another in the chat. So again, thank you so much everyone for watching. I appreciate all of you. Please take good care of yourself. On Wednesday, we're going to have a community healing circle in light of everything going on right now. We need some healing, okay? So this Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have a community live circle on this channel. Okay, so I will see you all later. Sim, if you can stay on, please, okay? Bye, everyone.